Okay, so I think this broadcast has begun. So we're going to be audible to those attendees listening, who are logging in as well. But that's fine. I'm just letting you know that.
Okay.
So I think, yeah, and then basically we will take questions at the end of the session. There will be, you can see the question tab kind of lower down.
Yes.
I don't know whether you can see that. Yeah. And you can also, yeah. Are you?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, great. You can also undock the questions kind of panel. So if there's a little icon next to the cross icon which closes the panel, there's a kind of square with an arrow coming out of it, which you can click on, and the whole question panel pops out. Are you? That just it just gives you more space to look at the questions, because otherwise it's a bit
tight. Yeah.
Are you able to pop it out?
I can expand it.
So yeah, so you can expand it using that sideways triangle thing, right?
Yes.
I can. But if you but on the right side of that questions tab, there's a square with an arrow in the square.
Yes. Yeah, I've been able to do that. Yep.
Yeah, so that pops it out, and that gives you more space to look at the questions, because in the if you you see it in the panel itself, there's very little space. You have to, I think the questions show just a line at a time, so it's difficult to read. So at question time, you can pop that out, and then you can read it more easily. Yeah, so that's more or less the flow. This session will be recorded, of course.
Okay.
As you might be aware. And good morning, everyone. Welcome to Education USA's Saturday webinars in India. Thank you for joining us. Today's session is on biomedical sciences and allied programs, specifically for graduates. Before I introduce today's speaker, I'd like to share some information about who we are and what we do. Education USA is a US Department of State supported body, and our mandate is to provide accurate, current, and comprehensive information to students who are looking to pursue higher studies in the US. We have 7 advising centers in India and over 400 worldwide. For more information, please visit www.educationusa.state.gov. In our efforts to reach more students, we conduct virtual information sessions twice a month on Saturday at 10 a.m. We invite you and your friends to join us on these Saturdays for sessions where you can learn more about the different aspects of higher study in the US. For today's session, our speaker is Professor Brian Nickerson, Senior Associate Dean for Master's Programs at the Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. Brian, good morning and good evening to you, and welcome to the Saturday webinar. And thank you so much for taking the time to present this session, especially so late at night.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
At this point, I'm going to ask all the participants to type in the chat box if you have any technical issues, and I will respond in the chat box and help you out. At the end of the session, we will have a time for questions and answers, so I request that you reserve your questions till the end. Brian, we're ready to begin. The floor is all yours.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the introduction. Okay, so good morning, everyone. Yes, it's almost midnight here in the US. I'm broadcasting from New York City, which is our main campus. Just to give you a little bit of very quick background on Mount Sinai, the Icahn School of Medicine in particular. The Icahn School of Medicine is in itself celebrating its 50 years. However, the hospital or the medical system in which we operate has been around for approximately 150 years. So we're one of the oldest and now largest academic medical systems in New York and within the United States as a whole. Mount Sinai is a top-ranked institution. If you look at some of the metrics here, these are just metrics that relate to our graduate school programming. So currently, by virtue of national funding, we're currently ranked in the top 15. That ranking is actually going up to the top 10 this year for 2019. We have well over $360 million a year in funding from the U.S. federal government and all sorts of innovative research from the Institutes of Health, as well as from other major funders such as the NSF. The research enterprise here is broad. As you can see, we've got a number of degree granting programs. We have top 10 rankings in a number of areas, including the most collaborative research institution. We routinely are ranked in the top 10 in many other ranking systems, including innovative campuses, et cetera. But this is really designed to give you an overview of some of the breadth and of research that's conducted through the graduate school. And you can see in some of the top NIH areas, particularly in neuroscience, microbiology, genetics, pharmacological sciences in particular, we're strong. But we're strong across a number of areas, including pediatric research, clinical trials, innovative science, translational science, et cetera. So we have very strong profile here. The medical school itself is consistently ranked in the top 20 throughout the United States. And again, just by virtue of those ranking systems, give you a sense and understanding, excuse me, that's the wrong document, gives you a sense of the rankings of the institution overall. So just to give you just a very quick overview, the health system itself, and it's important to understand about the graduate school here, we are part of the medical system. We're not a separate entity. We're not a university that has an affiliation with a medical system. We are the medical system. So this gives us fluid access to the research that goes on within the medical system, active research, translational research that goes from the lab to the bedside, literally. You have direct access to that environment. Our whole environment, our whole DNA of research is really built around that mechanism. Most medical schools in the United States are part of universities that are then affiliated with hospitals. Our model is much more direct and very different than that. And that allows us to be a little bit more fluid, a little bit more innovative. So the concept of direct research, direct biomedical research here is really what we're all about and what makes us, I think, a little bit more unique from other institutions. So here's just some quick metrics. By standards in India, this may not seem particularly large in terms of, let's say, the number of people employed or the number of centers, but by U.S. standards and certainly by New York City standards, these are significant numbers in terms of the order of magnitude. And it's important to understand this again from a standpoint of realizing that as a potential student studying in one of our master's programs here, this is clearly a unique opportunity to learn. This is our mission here. This is just a photograph of our main campus in New York City. If you're familiar with New York City, we're right on Central Park. You can see part of Central Park in this picture. And all of those buildings in this photo shot are a picture of our main campus that includes our hospital buildings as well as our research centers. And the right side of the picture there, you'll see smaller buildings. Those are areas for development over the next several years. Those are going to be built up to expand our footprint significantly. So our research enterprise is obviously doing very well and in significant expansion mode. What I wanted to talk a little bit more about today with you in terms of areas of interest, really focus in on our master's programs. We're unique as far as medical schools go in that we do have a pretty broad-based number of master's programs that are quite robust and strong in their own right. And what I'm going to focus on today are really some of the more popular ones, particularly for students from India, but throughout the world, really, what they come to Mount Sinai to study. So we do have a Master's of Science in Biomedical Science. This would be more of a traditional-based science program. I'll talk to you a little bit about the contours of that in a moment. But we also have a Master's of Science in Biomedical Data Science. And this is a program particularly for those who have a strong, let's say, computer engineering background, or potentially biomedical engineering, or otherwise a strong computational background. This would be a program where you'd be able to apply those skills in a biomedical context. So that's a new program for us. That's obviously in high demand. And this is a really unique institution by which one can really learn biomedical data science. I can tell you that we hire students out of these programs almost immediately because we need the skill sets and in our medical system. So these are in hot demands. By the way, all of these programs that I've mentioned here for you are STEM related. So for students studying in the US, obviously the visa process is prioritized, but also the OPT 2-year extension to allow you to work with in the field upon completion of a degree is also available to you. So we also have a biostatistics program. Again, if you have a strong background in mathematics or statistics, this is a great way to apply it. We have a number of different entities that support biostatistics, research centers that focus in on different areas, whether it's clinical trials or genomics, and genetics, pediatrics. We are a National Cancer Institute within the United States framework as well, which means if there's only 20 institutions designated in the United States with that, that means we receive top-level funding and research in the area of cancer as well. But these are just some samples of the areas of research that one can apply data science or biostatistics in. We also have a Master of Science in Clinical Research. For those that may have a health science background already, this is a viable option as well, where the need to really be able to manage clinical research and to bring clinical results to practice is really what this program focuses on. And then we also have a program in healthcare leadership. These are people who want to work in hospitals primarily as a way of really identifying the skill sets that are necessary to manage effectively healthcare delivery systems. What you would learn, obviously, in that is based on an American model. The strongest aspects there are things around technology, high order management, high levels of stresses on efficiency, people management, technical systems, as well as clinical care delivery systems that are studying those to become more optimized. I would say in India's healthcare system, you do a much better job at public health, a much better job at population health management than we do in the United States. So you wouldn't necessarily come to learn those areas. You would come to learn more of the technology management, data management, some of the standard business skills that one would need to run large enterprises effectively. Okay, so moving along here, I'm just going to give you a sense of the contours of each one of these programs. Now, the Biomedical Data Sciences are our newest program. This just gives you some of the overview. It's a 30-credit program. It's completed in 1.5 years. That's 1 year of coursework and a full semester of immersive research. You can choose a number of areas. These are just some that are listed: genomics, biophysics, pharmacology, engineering, image visualization, biostatistics, epidemiology, environmental medicine, public health, health system design, health information technology, just to name a few areas. There are many more than this, but this is just to give you a sense. And you focus in, you do a little bit of a science core for the curriculum. You either do biomedical science or systems biology. For those of you that are interested in neuroscience, you can do neuroscience and behavior as one of your science cores for this. But then you do courses in computer systems, algorithms, and machine learning oriented towards biomedical data science. Many people in this program have had deep learning in computer systems, have had, know algorithms well, and understand machine learning languages fairly well. But it's really the application in the biomedical context that's different. And this is what we offer, really, is to really enhance your skills and to apply them in this area. And you will start doing research in your first semester here. What's unique about Mount Sinai is you have access. We have over 250 research institutes. That's 250 within our academic medical system, that you would be placed in one of those to actually do your capstone project as well as doing your first year or first semester research as well. So the application requirements are listed here for you. The application process is relatively straightforward, what you normally find in pretty much any graduate program. The GRE and MCAT are, are optional for this program. They're not required. If you've gone to an institution, undergraduate institution, where English is not the language of instruction, we may ask for a TOEFL or IELTS score. The application deadline is June 1, but we have just received a large number of applications. So if you have any inclination, my suggestion would be to start the application process now, not wait to June, because I suspect that the seats in this program are going to fill up quite quickly. And again, what we look for is undergraduate degrees in computer science, engineering, mathematics, chemistry, physics, or any related quantitative discipline. Sometimes we have students from, let's say, economics or finance who've had kind of a detailed quantitative training and background and have done science and now really are much more interested in making science part of their career paths and want to learn that in more detail. So any quantitative discipline could obviously do well in this program. In addition to these other skill sets. Okay, so this is to give you a sense of that program. And again, you know, I would strongly urge you, if you have any interest, to start the application. We do waive the application fee for anyone who participates in these webinars or anyone who applies from abroad. We don't want that to be a barrier too, so we waive the $80 US application fee. The next program is the Biomedical Science program, and this, again, is Master of Science. And there's basically 3 categories of students who go into this program. Some use this as a segue for pursuing a doctoral program in research. I would identify for you that we also have PhD programs in biomedical science and neuroscience and clinical research. So we have 3 PhD programs. The application cycle for that program is now closed. It doesn't open again until next fall. We only have 35 seats. Those seats are funded seats, and we usually receive about 1,000 applications for those 35 seats. So it gives you a sense that they're highly competitive. But a number of students come in and go through the master's pathway first and then apply to PhD programs, not only our own, but also programs at, a lot of our major peer institutions throughout the United States, including Stanford, Yale, Harvard, Cornell, NYU, Columbia, to give you some examples of that. The second group of students that come into this are usually domestic U.S. students who are thinking about medical school, but they haven't had an appropriate science background or want to gain some kind of advantage in that application process. And then the third group are people who really want to work in biotech or pharma or want to work in a laboratory or science-based environment. And I could tell you from a standpoint of the demand inside the United States, having a master's degree is a sufficient credential to really start work in a lab immediately and do very interesting and sophisticated work. And the demand for the labor is quite high. And I would imagine once you have that skill set, you would be quite marketable regardless of the country or market that you would find yourself in. This program is a thesis-driven program, which makes it unique. It gives you an opportunity to do an independent thesis. You will be part of a lab by the end of your first semester, so you'll spend a full year inside a lab working with a PI who's NIH funded, and you'll be working on their grant-funded projects as well as their own projects. So you're doing real-world science, funded research, in a master's program. That's highly unique. Most master's programs will allow you to abstractly join or do research, have some academic advisor, but they're not going to guarantee the lab hours. So what we do in this program is much different. It's much more immersive, much more intensive, and as a result of that, we believe that the education experience is superior to what you'd see in other programs that don't have that lab-based research and thesis project that are required. You complete your degree in 3 semesters plus a summer, so it's roughly a 2-year program. Some students can complete it in 18 months. And again, it's personalized really to match your career path. You take courses with PhD, MD students in this program, so the level of instruction is high. It's rigorous, but it's also gives you a very immersive experience. Okay. So this is really designed to also set you up for other types of degree programs that you'd want to pursue beyond the master's program. Biostatistics is another area. That's we get a lot of inquiries from students with a strong mathematical or statistical background. This is a 34 credit program, can absolutely be completed within 1 year, 12 months or less. You would work in the Center for Biostatistics at the end of your first semester. So again, immediate application, you work on real clinical trials and projects. The department where I sit is the Department of Population and Health Science. This is where the Center for Biostatistics is located. We have about 30 biostatisticians now that work in that center. We are constantly hiring people to work there. And the students that are in that master's program, I can tell you, are doing really cutting edge research on making sure that drugs, devices, new clinical protocols are studied, and the success or those that are not working well are made known immediately. So you're working on these real projects as a result of that. Those skills are transferable almost in any way one would want to do research beyond the program. And we do have both physicians in that program as well as students right out of undergraduate who are, strong in biostatistics. So the curriculum really focuses on linear models, categorical data, applied biostats, a little bit of economics, genetic epidemiology, databases, drug development processes, molecular epidemiology, bioinformatics, pharmacoeconomics. I mean, you name it. These are just a sampling of the areas that one can focus on. Okay, and again, the application process is roughly the same for all of our programs. The only difference with this one is that the deadline is a little bit earlier. And particularly for international students, it's always good to get your application in sooner. It doesn't take you long to complete the application, maybe an hour or two at most. So I would urge you, if you're interested, to submit the application and at least start the process. So just be aware that that has a slightly earlier application deadline. One of the questions that's also asked by students from non-US based institutions is the official transcripts. And if those transcripts are not in English, we'll need to get them translated, and then we need to do a WES evaluation or some similar agency that can do a translation for us. So I know that's a common question, particularly around the students we see applying to the biostatistics program. The other requirement that's different here is, and it's usually not a problem for students from India, it is a problem for students from the US very often, is you have to have linear algebra and calculus courses. Those are required courses. If you don't, you would need a B or better. Or equivalent of a B or better. A lot of US students struggle in these areas, or they don't have this coursework, so that's really a prerequisite. We like to see that undergraduate coursework in place before one would apply the program. Okay, so that's biostats. I'm going to quickly move on to the next few just to give you a sense. This is our master's program in healthcare delivery. It's basically a management program. It's 18 months. It's for purposes you would avoid the phraseology that's used on this slide. We have two options. There is an online option and there is an in-person option. What we would refer to for purposes of this presentation is really the in-person option. You can complete this program in 18 months, but just be aware that there are people that do this online. If that's of interest to you, we can have a conversation. I'll leave you my contact information, but we would need to speak about that. These are usually for people that may be working in a healthcare system that can do the online option. But if you're a student who wants to come in as a full-time student and engage in this program, we do have an in-person option for you as well. And it's designed really, again, to focus in primarily on the management skills necessary to really adequately manage healthcare delivery, all of the clinical enterprises, all of the business models and aspects. So from the standpoint of the finance, the technology, the IT, the people management that are necessary here. This photograph, if you're not familiar with it, is from the tip of Manhattan looking forward. So that's New York Harbor there. The reason we show this photo also, it gives you a sense of the geographic scope of the Mount Sinai Health System. Covers this whole area basin of, that would be at least 10 million people represented in that photo, but that's primarily what our geographic footprint would look like. Okay, so this is a program that has online option for experienced healthcare professionals and then an in-person option. And we get students from all over the world in this program, India, other parts of Asia, the Middle East, and Europe, and a few from Latin America come to this program as well. And you can focus in a number of areas, but again, the primary focus is really on the business and management skills necessary to efficiently manage healthcare. Okay, another program initiative that I wanted to mention to you, which is unique, and it's a question we often get from students about what kind of options would I have that are, let's say, non-traditional pathways. Let's say I didn't want to go into a straight academic research career pathway. And I can tell you from a standpoint, particularly of American students, there are a number of newer options that are evolving and interest in areas other than just simply pursuing an academic career. A lot of students want to go into industry. They want to work for large consulting companies. They want to work for biopharma. They also want to work for startups and incubators for new businesses in the life sciences. So what we do is focus a set of training areas on biomedical innovation and commercialization. So the way this works is you are a student in the any master's program. You can choose an additional or optional area of training, and by virtue of some of the courses and extracurricular activity. So, for example, each master's program has a set of electives. You would choose your electives in biomedical commercialization. And what we do here, we have a group called the Mount Sinai Innovation Partners that does all of our commercialization activity. And it's a full team of researchers, of attorneys, of business people, of finance people. And really, we've created a collaborative center and resource that works directly with students on learning all of the business fundamentals, all of the commercialization, all the intellectual property pathways that one would need to become familiar with to be successful in this environment. So it is similar to what you'd find almost in business school curriculums in some degree, but it's really oriented towards the unique environment of biomedical research. So the courses that we would offer there are two primary ones. These are the two baseline courses, and then there are additional set of options that you have beyond this. But the courses in biomedical entrepreneurship focus first on intellectual property. And there we look at intellectual property basics. We look primarily at the US law, but we also look at international law as well. So if you're a student from India, we can take a look at some of the comparative aspects of intellectual property between the two nations in terms of how it protects intellectual property and what needs to be done around that, what you need to understand about the basic concepts. We also teach about the patent and copyright methods, both the US, the domestic ones, as well as international processes. We also teach the regulatory approval process within the United States. For instance, some of the large agencies that govern drug discovery, like our FDA. The US FDA is obviously one of the primary regulatory bodies over life science and drug discovery in particular. And you need to learn more about that. And then we spend a significant amount of time understanding contracts, licensing, and some of the legal parameters of intellectual property. So it gives you a firm baseline to understand some important concepts. And then the second course is on commercialization. And that course really focuses primarily on the business aspects. You learn how entrepreneurship works in different verticals, from drug discovery to devices to biotechnologies, including tech applications, software, for example, but also some of the other type of applications that we see developing, like telemedicine or telehealth, and the innovations that are occurring within that are obviously deep and wide. We also look at clinical and digital health as well. These are all really hot areas in the U.S. right now, extremely hot areas. I would say, I would put this as obviously one of the top 10 emerging industries, biomedical or life science innovation. And I know in India, it's also a very robust network as well. By virtue of studying in New York, however, we're one of the larger ecosystems of funding for biomedical research. So there are a lot of major companies here that look to hire our talent in our master's programs to work in analyzing the commercial viability and the scientific soundness of a number of different inventions that they may be investing in or owning or trying to bring to market. So fascinating area, a great area of application. We certainly give broad exposure to this. We also talk about the U.S. commercialization process, how businesses are what the startup mechanisms are like. How do you work in a startup? How do you do a startup yourself? And we really focus in on training you in a number of methodologies. The primary methodology we teach, just so you're aware of this, because I know it's of high interest, about 50% of our students who come into a master's program in a given year wind up taking at least one of the courses in biomedical commercialization. So we recognize this as of high interest. The methodology we teach is something called the I-Core. It's often called the Lean Launchpad methodology. It's a methodology that was kind of perfected or at least developed further at Stanford, and it's become a much more direct way to determine if an invention has any commercial viability to it. So it really gets to this process of developing a minimally viable product, so going through the scientific process of what's necessary, but simultaneous with that, understanding whether or not there is a customer base, a viable customer base and commercial base for that particular invention. So inventions can be wonderful things. They can lead to advancements in science, but not all of them have commercial viability or application, at least not initially. So how do you go through that assessment process? Well, this methodology will teach you how to do that. You'll work on real-world projects that come out of our health system. You can work on your own research that you're doing in one of the labs. Again, all the master's programs have significant research components to it. So you can test whether or not the inventions or innovations that you're working on or potentially discovering yourself have that commercial viability. And that's the course by which we do this. So it's very robust. I'm the person that teaches that course. It's an area where I worked with startups for a number of years. I'm also a lawyer by training as well as a PhD, so I have a unique background. I teach this. It's a fun course for me to teach. I love it, absolutely, to watch students immerse themselves in discovery and scientific discovery, but to figure out how to apply and to potentially commercialize that scientific discovery is a phenomenal process. And we're happy Mount Sinai supports this. It supports students to do this actively. So you have a significant base to really learn biomedical entrepreneurship and have really a strong background in it. And again, just to be very clear, you take a master's program, any one of our master's programs that I've listed for you in the beginning here, right? It could be Biomedical Sciences, it can be Biomedical Data Science, Biostats, Clinical Research, even in healthcare delivery. And you would choose your electives in any one of those masters in biomedical commercialization to allow you to apply what you're learning in any of these programs in this direction. I could tell you the students work on, developing surgical devices. They work on developing new algorithms for software programs. They look at new digital health technical applications. They look at applying artificial intelligence to advancing areas. We also have a number of partnerships with engineering schools where we partner with some of the student and faculty teams there to look at different methods for creating new innovations in the scientific and laboratory-based process. We just had a student group this last semester create a new hand sanitizing peptides. It's really hasn't gotten to market yet, but it will shortly. Just something as relatively basic and straightforward as that, you're allowed to really work on to see if there's any commercial viability for it. So it's an additional area. Some call it a bonus area, but obviously something on top demand. We do have research and fellowship opportunities in this area as well, so you can be doing active internship in addition to your lab work in the commercialization space. Okay, so I wanted to make sure that you understood that piece because it's not a full master's in and of itself, but it really focuses in giving you additional training areas. Okay, so this, in terms of the formal part of the presentation, to give you a sense of an overview of what we look to provide here, was just to give you a sense of of what we offer at the master's level. We do have an MD program, just so you're aware. The purpose of this presentation is not really to focus on that program. And again, as I also mentioned to you, we do have a PhD program with 3 PhD options and offerings. If you have an interest in that, you can contact me directly. I'd be happy to connect you to the right area and answer any questions you have. I'm also on the PhD admission committee, so I know a little bit of what goes on there. So I want to get to some of the questions here that have been asked, and these are look like really good questions. Is this, so it's one of the questions, is this for those who want to pursue undergraduate education? Our programs are graduate only. We're unique in several ways. So this is just for graduate students, master's level students. We don't have an undergrad, we're not part of an undergraduate university offering. We do have undergraduate research. However, if you're interested, we do have summer internship programs. If you're interested in that, send me an email. I'd be happy to connect you. It's called the SURP program, a CERT program. It's competitive. You can earn undergraduate credit for it, but you would work in one of our labs. So there's another question here that is, is biotechnology and biomedical sciences the same? This is a great question. Great question. Important to make the distinction. And really what we're trying to do at Mount Sinai, which makes us unique because a lot of the academic medical centers are very traditional in their approach here and where they keep things separate. We don't. We historically haven't done that, and nor are we continue to do. So what we are doing is we are converging our strengths in biomedical sciences, and we have broad strength. You name an area of biomedical research, and we do it at Mount Sinai. There is definitely a lab, over 250 labs. We are focused on pretty much all aspects of biomedical science research. But we now converge it with biotechnology, data science, statistics that are converging in this area to get us better answers and better questions to some of the biomedical science questions, as well as really the clinical and health questions that we have to try to advance healthcare, right? So what we do is we are converging technology, data science, statistics, and even management around this traditional biomedical science enterprise to really try to get to answers better, get to better quality answers, get to answers more efficiently, get to deeper answers, solve some of the major problems that have been yet unsolvable in human health. I mean, we're literally working on curing cancer, and in many instances, we're really close, particularly as some of the research that's coming out of genomics and data science right now. So that's a great question to understand. What we look at is the application of technology in the biomedical space, the application of data science, the application of statistics, all of these things. So hopefully that addresses your question. So they're biotechnology degrees. I will just give you one word of caution. They are very often, you have to be very careful the institution that you choose. You have to make sure it's done in a biomedical science context. Otherwise, you're just going to be getting folks who are really good at technology but are not familiar with the application of technology in a biomedical sense. You should really focus in on institutions that have that biomedical specialty if that's the field you want to be in. Okay, so be very careful about that. So that's why we don't call our degrees biotechnology. We call it biomedical data science, or for example, as our to make sure that distinction is understood. That's our focus. What is the deadline for the application of the Master of Science in Healthcare Delivery? The early deadline is April 1. The late deadline for that program is July 1. If you're an international student, you really need to aim for that April 1. This way we can process ample time to process visas, etc. So those are the kinds of things that we want to make sure you are earlier on these deadlines, just to put yourself in the best possible position to successfully apply the program, and go through the matriculation process. Okay, there's a question. I'd like to do a PhD, already completed a master's and an MPhil in life sciences, and then Fulbright research in the US for life science, cardiovascular medicine. Due to some reason to complete, I'm now looking for PhD opportunities. Please send me an email. We do offer PhD programs. The next cycle won't open until September of 2019. We have approximately 35 funded positions, but we receive over 1,000 applications. But it sounds like since you have a very strong background, you may be of interest to it. So please send me an email, or you can look on our website and you could find the application link to the PhD programs. I'm happy to point you in the right direction to do that. Yeah, so this is Katanza asked the question again, two persons, one from biomedical science, the other from biotechnology. What's the difference? The difference is really, again, it comes down to the convergence. What we're trying to do is take either strong science students and teach them technology, data science, and statistics so they can become more effective scientists. And the second group, we're trying to teach students who have strong computer engineering backgrounds or strong mathematical backgrounds to apply those skills in a biomedical context. So this is why we converge our degrees. We don't, we call them biomedical science degrees because that's where they're based. They're based on the science, that biomedical science process and application. So the difference, in terms of, I will tell you in the US system, this may be a little bit different in India, so you have to do a little bit of homework here. The degrees that have more traction are degrees that are offered by academic medical centers. And they're very often are applications of technology, statistics, data science, the particular biomedical science field. So that's really the difference. Biotech degrees can be almost of any variety. A lot of them are more informatics based, looking at how do end users use data, where we're really focused more on the scientific enterprise, using data, using technology for scientific discovery, as opposed to, let's say, managing healthcare organizations, right? So it's not data for management purposes. It's data, it's statistics, it's technology for purposes of enhancing and accelerating scientific discovery and clinical applications of those discoveries. Okay? So that's really pretty much. After completing a master's from India, can we do Master's of Science in Healthcare Delivery? Yes, you can. The difference here is you would be more at a strategic level for what you would look for here in a Master's of Science, and that would be different from your MBBS in India. There will be a lot of crossover skills, but the application in the US health system will be a little bit different. And then again, we focus in on areas of management and what we call lean healthcare management to give you the tool sets to become even more effective. So yes. One of the questions here is, do we offer financial aid for students? Yes, in biomedical data science, there are a number of limited scholarships that are offered. So you would basically have to apply, get accepted, and then there's a financial assessment process that is done in terms of identifying potential funding support for students. Okay, there's another question here from Bhavin. I have a MS from UTEP, completed PhD requirements from ASU in semiconductor physics. That's really interesting. Am I eligible for a PhD? Yes, you are. Pravin, I can tell you that, again, when we talk about convergence, we like seeing people with engineering backgrounds. We like seeing people with biochemical engineering backgrounds. We like seeing people with physics backgrounds. So that would gain attention to the PhD committee if you were interested in applying for that. So Probably I would, urge you to consider that and making an application if you see that there's a potential fit. So the next question is math basic requirements for undergraduate in biotechnology. I'm going to assume you're asking about what are the mathematical requirements. So for data science, you really have to have some background in computer engineering and computer languages in particular. That's the most important piece of it. For the biostatistics program, should you be interested in that direction, you would need to have algebra, linear algebra, and calculus. But for data science, it's as long as you have some computational background, you know, in essence, we can look at that and make a determination for you. Normally, we want to see students who are very comfortable in a computational environment. You're going to be looking at large data sets. You're going to have to do some light programming. You're going to have to be able to put massive amounts of data together and then statistically manipulate that data once you have it arranged. So those are the kind of skill sets you need. So you can see the convergence between good statistical mathematical skills in addition to some computer engineering background. You don't have to be like, you know, doctoral level in computer engineering, but to have the basics down is really important. Students who don't have that background really struggle to do well in these programs because you really have to get right into the research. You have a lot of time to do remedial or fundamental work. So those are the basics that really you need to keep have in place. I'm happy to take a look at any transcripts or coursework you've done to give you a sense of what could be possible and what could be most relevant for you. Okay, I think we've addressed, I'm just going to make sure that I've gotten to all of the questions. I think I have. If you have another one, please type them in now. I'd be happy to spend a few more minutes online answering you, even though it's after midnight here in New York, which is fine. You know, I'm a late owl, and being able to present to you is a privilege. I really appreciate the time. Yeah, I have 20 plus years experience in information technology with 9 years at IBM in India. Yeah, probably you're more oriented towards PhD area. So please send me a profile, your link. I'm happy to follow up with you on that. That would be fine, and put you in contact with some of the right people. So I think this concludes the formal part of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Professor Nickerson, Brian, for your presentation. I think it really opened up and kind of explained the landscape of biomedical sciences and related programs. And I think it was really useful because a lot of students here seem to have very specific interests in this field. So I think that was a good match and meeting of interested students and you know, your expertise. So thanks so much. And thank you, students and applicants, for attending and for being here for this presentation. We look forward to seeing you potentially at future webinars as well. And yes, as we've said, if you have questions about these programs, please do email Professor Nickerson. And if you have general questions about the application process, you're welcome to get in touch with us. My email will be in the email you have received for this webinar. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Good night, Professor.
Thank you very much for hosting. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.